Hi guys, I'm Alex Tribi. I'm here at the M.A.T Academy with the Moog One, one of the best synthesizer in the world. We got our hands on in the last few days, and let me say it, this machine is incredible. We're gonna explain how it works, how it's built, and the 5 top things we liked about this incredible synth. Come with us. A little bit of history before starting deep diving into the machine. The Moog One is the first polyphonic synthesizer the Moog is building after 30 years. So this is an incredible thing for Moog synthesizer. It has 2 versions, 8 voices and 16 voices of polyphony. And each voice is built with 3 oscillators. So you can go up to 24 or 48 oscillators working to make your sound. And you can go from complete synced mono sound to wide open polyphonic sound. So you can imagine how incredible this machine can sound. Let's deep dive into how it's built, and then we're going to hear how it sounds. Okay, so let's understand how this machine is built. Let's start from the generators. So you have 3 oscillators where you have the normal octave choice. So you can just change the octave. And then you have 2 main parts of waveform. So you can choose, the whole synth is built on 2 different approaches of waveform. The first one is a triangular or saw waveform. You can choose from here. And you can choose also the shape of the waveform with this knob. So you see, I can move, and there is this nice LCD that gives us a real feedback on how visually the waveform is changing. And then I have on the other side the square or pulse waveform based on how much I change this knob. Now the magic knob is this one in the middle where I can mix the 2 waveforms. So if I put it completely on the square pulse side, you can see that I can go from a completely small pulse to a complete square waveform. But then if, for example, I'm completely in square waveform and I get back to the triangular one, but then if I mix them up, I get something different that I mix from the 2. So this is a waveform. I go completely square, I completely sawtooth, I get back a bit of square, or I go pulsy. And this is a way I start shaping my waveform. Obviously, I have 3 different oscillators I can act on with the same characteristics. I choose the octave, and I choose the waveforms I want to use. Plus, I have a tremendous amount of modulation I can insert on. I have a frequency modulation, I have the bit frequency modulation, and then I have a pitch modulation, a ring mod, the waveform modulation, and a frequency modulation that I can modify to influence the sound. For example, let's see. Okay. If I where it, you feel we can go crazy with the sound, because on top of selecting the waveforms, I can start modifying it with these modifiers. Now watch one thing. We have on the side 4 LFOs, okay? You see the LFOs here. I can choose the different waveform of the LFO, and I have those LFO hard linked to some of the controls. So for example, here we have the LFO1 is linked to the pitch modulation, the LF3 to the waveform, okay? But then I can also assign any of these command to anything in the machine with this magic knob, and I will explain you in a while. So imagine that you can link everything to everything in this machine. Then you have a master clock section when you can choose the tempo, tap the tempo in, and there is another nice feature we're going to explain later on, an arpeggiator full of features, and a sequencer that you can assign and record your your melodies and recall them. You can also store all the arpeggios in the sequencer into the machine to recall them for live session or for any use you may want to do. I'm gonna show you one nice feature of this arpeggiator in sequencer when we're gonna explain you how this machine actually is not one synth but is three synths together. But let's park for a second. Then we have a chord section where you can learn or activate the instant chord feature, the hold function, and a noise generator. Now the noise generator is very interesting because let me for a second shut down. Here it is. In this Moog, you have a noise section that is very well thought through because I can choose the different type of noise. I can choose the color of the noise, and I also have an attack and release parameter for the noise that is independent from the IDSR of the synth. So I can go shaping the sound I want, okay, in the way I want, independently from anything else on the synth, okay? Now, let's move on the right side of the synth. On the right side of the synth, we have the mixes section where I can mix the three oscillators together with the ring modulation and the noise. So here is where I mix all the sounds coming from this side into the final sound, okay? I can assign every oscillator, the ring modulation or the noise, to the filters. You see, it just lights up, and I can assign this to the filters section. Why do I have two buttons here? Is because this Moog has two different filters on it. Okay, you have a state variable filter and a ladder filter that is the typical Moog sound. So if I, for example, I just put one arpeggio in, I assign all the oscillators and the ring modulation and the noise to the filters. I, as you can see, cut off, resonance, but I have two different filters. Now, how this works is still with a mix button, like the waveform thing, you know? So I can mix how much of the first and how much of the second filter I get with their different resonance. And I can get incredible sounds out of it because I have two filters acting on different part of the sound with different type of parameters. It could be a notch, band pass, high pass, or low pass. And the ladder is also only high pass or low pass. And I can put them in parallel or in serial. And I can also link the cutoff. So using one cutoff, open both. You see? Okay, on top of this, I have a cutoff modulation part that is like the modulator of the oscillators. I can go crazy with this, changing. You see here I have the LFO2 hardly linked. So if I go on the LFO2 on the left of the synth that I showed you before, I can choose. You see? And then I can get up again. And I can assign this modulation to one filter, to the second filter, or both by clicking, just clicking. So it's very easy to craft your sound and go crazy with all the parameters you have. Then we go to the filter envelope section. Okay, I just linked them for easiness. And here I can choose the attack, decay, sustain, and release on my filter. Okay, or of my sound. Very easily, I remove the attack of the sound, I get it back, or I get on with the release, you see? Short release. And then I have a modulation envelope that I can assign to anything, specifically to the modulation part. Then we go to the effects part, okay? Effect, we have an incredible amount of effects on this machine. They are digital effects, and everything else is analog. So if you bypass the effect, the machine is completely analog. If you go with the effect on, this is also a digital bit in it, but you get incredible effects, plus an eventide reverb section that is being given from eventide to Moog for an incredible depth of sound. Now, I introduced one thing on the Moog. You see every section has this small triangle on the top right. If you click this, in the center screen, it opens up a specification for that section. So here, for example, as you can see, I can choose the type of effect with this big knob. I put a flanger, and the flanger is on. On the control assign, I can choose which, with this knob, you see, it scrolls. I can see which part of the effect I map to these two knobs. So for example, now I put a flanger. Let's see if this works. And I can change the effect with these two, okay? Here it is. If I put like a chorus, effect type, like a stereo delay. Here it is. I put time right and time left. I have the delay, and then the delay parameters in it. And then here I have the master effect and the sense to the parameters. Then I have the volume, the headphones volume, and then I have the VCA, the level of the amplifier, and the pan. It's interesting why we have double the output is because you can assign different level of volume and panning for each of the synth you are using. What does this mean? This gives me the opportunity to bring you to the center section of the Moog. What does this mean? Let's start exactly from this part. You see, you have like synth 1, synth 2, and synth 3. This Moog has 3 different synths layered together. So if I click synth 1, I have this sound. But in synth 2 is empty. Okay? So you see, you can have different volume. You see, I have 3 synths, and I can give a volume to every synth. You see, I choose synth 3, and I give the volume different to synth 3. And synth 1, I get the volume down. Now let's take a sound with 3 synths together. So for example, let's take this sound, okay? You hear the sound like this, but we have 3 synths. So I click on the button here. I see on my screen the 3 level is volume and pan. So now I am synth 1, and that's the synth 1. Then I go on synth 2. You feel it's a different one, and I pan it to the right. And then I go synth 3, and I pan it to the left. And I have 3 independent synths now sounding and playing together. And I just mix them up into a larger sound. And then I can go in synth 1 and modify its arpeggio. You see, if you hear the sound, I'm changing just the synth 1 arpeggio. You feel? Now I go on synth 2 and I modify the synth 2. And the filter goes only on synth 2. While synth 1 and 3 stay the same, synth 2 goes up. And then I go on synth 3 and I close synth 3, or I give release to synth 3. Okay, so the idea is that you have 3 different synths playing together completely, and you can work completely in-depth sound shaping in each synth independently one to the another, and then mix them up into one final synth. Last part of the screen, as you see, we can touch everything and control everything. If I want to see the filters, I see the filters here. This is how much is mixed, one filter, the other filter, as you see, the cutoff, the other cutoff, and then the two resonances, and then the mix from one to the other. Everything I touch, this is the mixer of the sound, this is the IDSR. So you see, I can see visually also what I'm hearing with my ears, and this is very important. And then I can route and assign everything. So if I want to give the velocity, for example, this is the expression assign, the velocity opens the filter, I just click velocity and then I touch the filter and I say how much of the velocity impacts the filter. But if I want the velocity also to open the attack of the amplifier, I just touch also that one. So now the velocity opens the filter and opens the attack. So I can get really crazy patching everything together in this machine. And then here you have like the typical settings, home and everything, and here you can store the presets. And now we're gonna share the 5 things, small things that impressed us the most about this machine. The first thing that really impressed us is the usability of this synthesizer. It's strange to say on a machine that costs 8,000 euro, that one of the biggest things is the way you use it, but is like this. Everything is mapped so well. Big knobs, there is space, you can turn your hands, everything is visual, everything is easy to reach, and moreover, with this display that if I touch something, explain me the different things I can do, is one of the first time you can really use a synth quite without using the manual. It's very, very intuitive. And let me say one thing, this sparks your creativity up, because having the ability to reach out to controls once you just understood a bit of them, it can really gives you the freedom to get your gut on the machine and go and tweak the knobs and reach out your feelings on the machine. This is probably the best machine we have used in terms of creativity inspiration. So this is 10 plus, is A plus score for this, probably one of the best things of this machine. The second outstanding feature is the 3 synths in one. Okay, you have different machines that does also this thing, but the way it's implemented in this Moog One is incredible. You have like 3 different machines. You can create independent sound and then mix one on the other and then have them interact together into the analog realm of this machine. The sounds you can get out of these 3 things together is simply incredible. Again, it's a way the machine has been built that gives to this Moog One a different kind of sound that we got anywhere else in other synths. The other part is the effect section. It's a very complete effect section that nowadays is even more important to when you create a sound to make it mix into the other sounds, or just to go crazy, adding on top of everything of this also the effect section. The Eventide Dawn is really the cherry on the cake. It makes this synth goes into a depth of sound that is really hard to get with other machines. Another thing that we loved a lot about this machine is the modern thinking Moog had in building it. I'll give you one example. If you go in the master clock section, when you can set up the tempo or get in the external tempo clock in it, if you click the famous upright corner button, it gives you the settings of the tempo here. We noticed by accident, because we were just crawling into the synth, that there is a nudge mode. And if you put it into increment, you have like an arpeggio. You just move it and it goes up in the tempo and down in the tempo. But if you put into band mode, you can use the synth to sync to external sessions like a DJ does, like nudging. So I just can click it and it spin up a bit for a second, then it slow it down to the regular tempo, changing it slightly a bit. So if you're just feeling you're slightly behind, you are in the right tempo but slightly behind the beat, you can just moving everything up or down to sync with the song. So this for a live session, especially if you want to use it live with a DJ or with a a thing that cannot just sync to you by slowing down. This is very, very important, and not many synths has this. And this is very modern, because today is this DJ and turntabling thing with synthesizer coming really up into the synth. So really, really a modern thinking into a classic machine that's gonna be classic forever. So probably the things that we love the most about this machine then at the end is how it sounds. This thing sounds incredible. It goes from polite, incredible sound to the most crazy things you can reach. It goes from mono beasts to orchestral, incredible, wide, polyphonic sounds. And coupled with everything we explained to you before, the creativity that it inspires you, and the really in-depth sound designing voyage you can make, it's really probably one of the best synths we ever had under our hands. I would say probably the best synths I ever played. It's really incredible. It's a joy to play. Maybe your girlfriend will not be happy because you will just quit with her and play just the Moog every time you can. But I mean, if you can afford it, this probably is the one synth to go. Obviously, the price tag is not cheap, and I'm not saying that is the first thing you need to buy if you are a musician, but of course is in your wish list, because this is probably the one synth you want to have for your whole life. Thank you for watching. Thank you from M.A.T Academy, from MIDIWARE, that provided us this synth. See you to the next review. Ciao.